Here is part 3 of 3 of our grand European Viking river cruise. We started with day 9 in Bamberg, Germany, which was founded in 902. Bamberg remains a medieval-looking city known for its symphony orchestra and Rauchbier, specialty smoked beer. The city's winding streets are filled with Baroque patrician houses and are home to the stunning 11th century cathedral of Holy Roman Emperor Heinrich II, housing his tomb and that of Pope Clement II. Bamberg is especially noted for its Altes Rathaus, or Old Town Hall, situated on a twin-arched bridge over the Regnitz River, and for the old bishop's houses, the 16th century Alte Hofhaltung, Old Court, and 17th century Neue Residenz, New Residence. We delved into the history of Bamberg during an informative walking tour, viewing historic sites as our guide headed to the medieval city center, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Passing by the magnificent 11th century cathedral with its 4 imposing towers. The church was rebuilt in the late Romanesque and early Gothic style during the 13th century. Stopping to admire the detailed statue of the Bamberger Reiter, or Bamberg Horseman. Then we see the Bamberg New Residence with its rose garden and panoramic views of the old town, as well as the picturesque Rathaus, or Town Hall, built in the middle of a double-arch bridge over the Regnitz River. From here, you can see fishermen's cottages on the nearby riverbanks. After the tour, we enjoyed time following your own whims in Bamberg, sampling some of the town's distinctive Rauchbier, or smoke-flavored beer, before we rejoining our Viking riverboat. Day 10 started off with waking up in Würzburg, Germany surrounded by Franconian vineyards. Würzburg was heavily damaged during World War II, but has since been completely restored. This prestigious university city is a jewel of Baroque architecture. Its most pristine example of pomp and glory is the great bishop's residence palace, built in 1744 for the Prince Bishop. His unwavering support of artists is evidenced by the sweeping staircase and magnificent ceiling frescoes by Tiepolo. Other landmarks include the medieval, statue-lined Old Main Bridge and Marienburg Fortress, originally a Celtic hill fort and later residence of the bishops. The city remains a major winemaking center, hosting Germany's oldest and largest vineyard. We toured Würzburg's bishop's residence, one of Germany's ornate palaces, and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We then drove with our guide to the former residence of the Würzburg Prince Bishop that was built over a 25-year period beginning in 1719. We admired the overhead ceiling with its stunning 6,400 square foot, 4 continents fresco painted by Venetian artist Giovanni Tiepolo. We then passed through several of the building's ornate rooms, finishing with the colonnaded chapel and the Baroque and English-style gardens lined with ornate statues, highlighted with the mirror cabinet. Incredibly, the entire complex was meticulously reconstructed after suffering extensive damage from the World War II bombing. Afterwards, we continued to the old town of Würzburg, where our walking tour showed us the stunning Romanesque cathedral, the Neumünster Church, and the market square and town hall, and the oldest wine bar in town. Day 11 started off with waking up in Wertheim, Germany. Situated at the confluence of the Main and Tauber rivers, Wertheim is a charming town brimming with history. The Dukes of Wertheim built a castle at this strategic spot in the 12th century. It was captured and destroyed during the 30 Years' War, but it is still impressive today, peering down upon the medieval town center and half-timbered houses from its perch. Its pointed tower has guarded the junction of the Main and Tauber rivers for 800 years. Known as a successful merchant's town during the Middle Ages, today Wertheim is famous for its Franconian wines. The rest of our day we enjoyed a scenic sailing up the main river Spessart. We journeyed along one of Germany's most important waterways today, passing landscapes that embody the country's scenic beauty and storybook charm. We sailed by quaint riverside villages, undulating farm country and the sylvan forests of the Spessart woodlands. Along the way, we lost ourselves in the dreamy canvases of half-timbered houses, historic castles, and splendid palaces. This is the Germany once ruled by dukes and brought to magical life by the imagination of the brothers Grimm, who grew up in the town of Hanau and wove fantastic tales from these banks. We paused in Wertheim, a small but strategically located town at the junction of the Main and Tauber rivers. We joined our guide to experience this quaint village, squeezed into a narrow triangle in the shadow of Wertheim Castle. As we strolled, its red sandstone towers and fortifications mark your progress from their perch, striking a dramatic pose against the lush hillside forest. We walked past the pointed tower, round at the bottom and octagonal at the top. Over 800 years, it has tilted to one side, amble among beautifully restored, half-timbered houses built in Franconian style. At the historic marketplace, we passed by a bakery and butcher shop, where we were told that we can stop after our tour to learn more about how these important professions help uphold German traditions. We can also stop by a glass-blowing shop to admire the intricate works. Day 12. We started off with us doing another scenic tour on the Middle Rhine River, flowing through one of Germany's most scenic regions. As we sailed through its most picturesque stretch, the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Middle Rhine, we passed vineyard-blanketed hills whose steep slopes require vintners to pick grapes by hand, keeping a centuries-old tradition alive. Splendid castles line the banks, all of which had stories to share, and the Lorelei Rock presides over a dramatic curve in the river. This infamous river maiden mesmerized sailors with her song and lured them to their demise at her feet. As we docked in Koblenz, Germany is a traditional German city, founded more than 2,000 years ago. This former trading settlement rests on a massif of the Middle Rhine highlands. Its cobblestone streets, wood-beamed houses adorned with flowers, ancient market square, and medieval churches recall the fairy tale Germany of old. At the German corner, a massive equestrian statue of Prince William I observes the lovely riverside scene. The famed Teutonic Knights set up their first base here in 1216. The Romanesque Basilica of St. Castor, Koblenz's oldest building, dates to 836. We took a leisurely stroll around Koblenz with our guide and explored its historic past, touring the Deutsches Eck, the city's famed German corner. Jutting into the waters like the prow of a ship where the Rhine and Moselle rivers meet, this public park is home to a popular equestrian statue of Emperor Wilhelm I. After admiring the sculpture, we continue our walk among the narrow streets, visiting Jesuitenplatz and Jesuit Square, in the heart of the old town and named after the religious order of the same name. Admiring the beautiful old school that sits on the eastern side of the square and has been used as Koblenz City Hall since 1895. As we explored, our guide pointed out influences from ancient Rome, the Middle Ages, and the Napoleonic era. We then headed back to the Viking riverboat as we were ready to call it a day and get ready for dinner. After dinner, we returned to the lounge for drinks, where a three-piece band was performing live music for the evening. After some time, we called it a night and returned to our Explorer suite. On day 13, we began our morning in Cologne, Germany, enjoying breakfast on the veranda of our Explorer suite. Cologne reveals its Roman heritage in its city layout and the ancient ruins that lie scattered through the town. Cologne's modern plazas and Hohe Strasse host welcoming shops, enticing restaurants, and boutiques. Of note is the city's 13th century cathedral, a stunning example of Gothic artistry and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Having survived Allied bombs during World War II, the cathedral's imposing twin spires are visible for miles, and its stained glass windows fill the interior with brilliant colored light. Its steps lead to a platform with astounding views. Our Cologne walking tour started off with a historic city crowned by Northern Europe's largest cathedral. Our guide told us about Cologne's heritage and view of its iconic cathedral, towering over the city in all its Gothic splendor. Stepping into a rich past, following the city's preserved historic street patterns and hearing about its Roman and medieval history along the way. As we strolled, our guide told us tales of local folklore figures, Tunis and Schell, and the city's flourishing Jewish community. In Old Cologne, passed the elegant silhouette of St. Martin's Church and stopped to view Cologne's magnificent Gothic cathedral, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Construction of this towering structure began in 1248 and continued in stages over the next 7 centuries. The largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe, this magnificent church boasts 2 soaring spires and beautiful stained glass windows, and survived the Allied bombings that ravaged the city and the rest of Germany during World War II. Day 14 was a scenic sailing day to Waal and Merwede. We sailed through the bucolic waters of the Rhine, deep into the Rhine-Meuse-Scheldt Delta, as classic Dutch landscapes unfurl all around. Flat farmland, charming windmills and svelte poplar trees line the shores, and vast tracts of land stretch in all directions, growing all manner of bounty, from tomatoes to tulips. We gazed upon Frisian cows and tidy villages as we floated down the river with their neatly laid farmhouses, and marveled at how much of this land was reclaimed from the sea with the aid of traditional windmills and the construction of dikes. Kinderdijk in the Netherlands is a village community in the Alblasserwaard province. This corner of South Holland, part of the scenic Waal and Merwede regions, has long been shaped by Rhine Delta waters. Kinderdijk is most known for its 19 remarkably preserved 18th century windmills. The charming hamlet is located amid low-lying polders, tracts of land reclaimed from the sea by the power of the windmills and enclosed by embankments or dikes. This legendary place calls to mind the 1865 novel Hans Brinker, in which a heroic boy plugs his finger into a ruptured dike. While relaxing in the lounge with drinks, we admired the Dutch countryside before docking to meet our guide and explore South Holland's serene polder lands. Crossing the dike, we noticed the 19 windmills, built in the mid-18th century, standing at a lower elevation than our ship, as much of the region is below sea level. We learned about their history, mechanics, and even visited a working windmill, discovering that resident families must keep them operational. The excursion offered valuable insight into these iconic structures. Afterwards, we returned to the Viking River cruise boat for dinner and enjoyed our final night of festivities before an early morning departure for Amsterdam Airport. On our final day, 15, we woke up in Amsterdam, had breakfast in our Explorer suite, and said goodbye to fellow guests before disembarking for the airport. After an 8-hour flight to D.C., we caught our connecting flight to Tampa, where our chauffeur met us and drove us home, bringing our unforgettable trip to a close. Thank you to everyone who joined our trip and shared drone videos and photos, making this 3-part Viking Grand European Tour Cruise series possible. If you take a Viking River cruise, you'll notice their higher standards of service, making it well worth the cost.